Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to lesson 20 of Straight Path Academy Arabic Volume 1, Reading Arabic Letters. This straight line is the Arabic letter Alif. Above the Alif, we see a wavy line, and this symbol is called the Madda. So when a Madda is written above the Alif, we can call this combination the Alif Madda. And this represents a Hamza, which indicates what we call a glottal stop, with a fatha above it, followed by an alif. Therefore, the alif madda will sound like a. So for the Hamza, we'll write an apostrophe. For the fatha, we'll write an a. And then for the alif, we will write another a. So it will sound like a. An example of an Arabic word that contains the alif madda is the word Qur'an. And we can sound it out letter for letter by just looking right here. This letter Qaf is where we get the Q. This Dhamma is where we get the U. This Ra is where we get the R. And this Sukoon means that there is no haraka. There's no vowel sound coming right after the Ra. Then we see the Alif Madda. Here is the Alif with the Madda above it, which again represents a Hamza with a Fatha followed by an Alif. So after the R representing the Ra, we have an apostrophe representing the Hamza. Then we have an A representing the Fatha, and then we have another A representing the Alif. And then finally the word ends with a Noon, so we have the letter N for the Noon. So as we can see, the word Qur'an contains an Alif Madda. This is how the Alif Madda looks alone. This is how it looks in the beginning of a connection, because as we learned, the alif does not connect to a letter after it. And this is how it looks in the middle or end of a connection. Now before moving on, there's one very important point to understand about the alif madda, which is that in the Quran, in the Mus'haf, instead of using an alif madda to represent a Hamza with a Fatha followed by an Alif, we'll find the word simply written with a Hamza, Fatha, and Alif. Whereas in other books, it'll be written like this. So in order to demonstrate this, we're going to take a look regarding how amana is spelled in this book, which is Sahih al-Bukhari, versus how it's spelled here in the Mus'haf, the Quran. Now both of these say the exact same thing. Here in the Quran it says, Man amana billah. And here in the Hadith it says, Man amana billah. However, in the Hadith, we see an Alif Madda, but in the Quran we see a Hamza with a Fatha followed by an Alif. Now again, both of these say the exact same thing. However, typically outside of the Quran, you'll see an Alif Madda representing the Hamza with a Fatha followed by an Alif. Whereas in the Quran, you'll see the Hamza with a Fatha followed by an Alif literally written out. So it's important to know that when you're reading the Quran and you come across this wavy line that looks like a Madda, in the Quran, it's not used to represent a Hamza with a Fatha followed by an Alif, but rather it's used to indicate extending the pronunciation of a letter. And that's because the Quran is not like other books, but rather it's a recitation that has certain rules regarding how it's supposed to be recited. And that's why, for example, in this Mus'haf, you see all these different colors, because they are indicating different rules of recitation. So now that that's clear, inshallah, we can move to the exercise. Let's do number 6 together. First, we identify the letter. This miniature circle is the letter Mim. So we'll write an M for the Mim. Beneath the Mim is a Kesra, so we'll write an I for the Kesra. So together, the Mim and Kesra would be pronounced Mi. Mi. The next letter is a hook shape extending down, meaning this is the letter Ra. So we'll write an R for the Ra. Above the Ra is a Sukoon, meaning there's no vowel sound coming directly after the Ra. And next we have the Alif Madda. And remember the Alif Madda, it represents a Hamza with a Fatha above it, followed by an Alif. So for the Hamza, we're going to write an apostrophe. For the Fatha above the Hamza, we're going to write an A. And then for the Alif, we're going to write another A. Therefore, the Alif Madda would be pronounced A. A. And then finally, at the end, we see a hole with 2 dots above, which is a combination of the letter Ha and Ta, meaning this is the Ta marbuta, which only comes at the end of a word. And when it comes to the ta marbuta, we learned that if we pronounce the haraka, it will be pronounced as the letter ta, but if we don't, it's going to be pronounced as the letter ha, the soft H sound. Now, because we see a haraka written above the ta marbuta, we're going to pronounce it, so we're going to write a T for the ta marbuta. Above the ta marbuta, we see tanween fatha, so we're going to write an A for the fatha and N for tanween. So the ta marbuta with tanween fatha would be pronounced ten, ten. So now if we pronounce this entire word, it would be mir'atan, mir'atan. Now before you move on and complete the exercise, there's one more extra benefit at the bottom of lesson 20. And this is regarding what we call the dagger alif, or alif khanjariya. The dagger alif, or alif khanjariya, is written as a short vertical stroke on top of a letter. It indicates an alif, although it's not written. So for example here, if we look at the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman, we see this line above the letter Mim. And that line is a dagger alif, indicating that after the Mim, after that M sound in the name Ar-Rahman, we're going to pronounce an alif. There's an A sound, Ar-Rahman. So instead of an actual alif being written after the letter Mim, you may see a dagger alif written above the Mim, indicating that an alif needs to be pronounced after it. So for example, this is the first page of Surah Al-Baqarah. And on this page alone, there are several examples of the dagger alif. For example, right at the top, we see Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And as we mentioned, the name Ar-Rahman has a dagger alif above the Mim. The first word of the second ayah has a dagger alif above the letter Dhal. It's pronounced Dhalika, with an alif sound coming after the letter Dhal. The second word of the second ayah has a dagger alif above the letter Ta. This word is Al-Kitab. There's an A alif sound after the letter Ta. And this is the dagger alif, or alif khanjariya. Allahumma barak, congratulations. That concludes all 20 lessons of Straight Path Academy Arabic Volume 1, Reading Arabic Letters. However, make sure you stay tuned because although we learned all of the letters and symbols, there's a few more things I'd like to point out in the next video regarding reading the Arabic language. And then the next step is practicing and preparing for Straight Path Academy Arabic Volume 2, Vocabulary and Grammar. Allah knows best. Keep up the great work. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.